Good morning and welcome to First Things First. I'm Jen Wolf. That is Nick Wright. Danny Cannell is with us this morning.
What up, DK?
What's going on? How are we doing today?
All right. We are great. We are only 2 weeks away from the Super Bowl. There are a ton of storylines to dive into this morning. And we're going to start on your corner, Nick Wright, with the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs are playing for Lombardi Trophy for the first time in 50 years, thanks in large part to that guy right there, Patrick Mahomes. And while Mahomes has been lights out this postseason, he did come up just short in the AFC Championship game last year against Tom Brady and the Patriots. But after that loss, Brady reached out to Mahomes with some interesting advice. Take a listen.
The biggest thing that Tom said to me was just to stay with the process and keep being who I am. And that's something that's important as a guy who's had so much success every single year he's been in the NFL, is that he goes out there every single day and he treats it like it's the most important day. And so that's something that I'll try to do for my entire career.
Nick, when you look at a guy like Patrick Mahomes, what he's done so far in such a short amount of time, do you think he could eventually overtake Brady as the greatest of all time?
I think it's such a fascinating question because at first blush, you say, well, on one side of the ledger, you've got Patrick Mahomes, who I think a lot of people are already starting to say might be the most talented, physically gifted quarterback, checks every box we've ever seen. On the other side, you've got Tom Brady, whose winning resume to go along with the statistical resume almost assuredly will never be matched. And you would say, well, then no, it's impossible. He has amazing numbers to go along with 9 Super Bowl appearances and 6 championships. No one will ever do that again. That I'm very confident in. But does that mean no one could ever, through the lens of history, overtake him as the greatest quarterback ever? Danny, I think it could happen because we have seen it happen in another sport. Bill Russell, when he retired, had more MVPs than anybody ever, had 11 championships in 13 seasons. He even had his version of Brady Manning was Russell Wilt, where there was another guy in the same era who a lot of people thought, well, he should be better than Bill. He's more physically gifted. He can do more, yet this guy won more. This guy was more well-respected by his peers as far as who the best of the era was. And when Bill Russell retired, I imagine if these types of shows existed, the conversation would have been, well, he will go down in history, no matter how long history goes, as the greatest ever. He has 11 championships. He has 5 MVPs. But right now in 2020, do you ever hear anyone say Bill Russell is the GOAT? Even if maybe you should make the argument. People say Jordan passed him, LeBron passed him. Some people say Kareem, even Magic. Some guys have him outside of the top 5. So I say all that to say this. If Patrick Mahomes wins a handful of rings, he doesn't have to win 6, and continues to do things on the field we've never seen anyone else do, is it plausible? Is it on the board? Yeah, it's on the board. Is it a less than 10% chance? Of course, but I can't just dismiss it as impossible because I do think it's impossible he gets the 6 championships.
You know, I think we have to be careful because, you know, watching a lot of shows, listening to a lot of shows yesterday, it was almost there was this contest of who could rave the most or who could make the most outlandish statement about how great Patrick Mahomes is going to be. And I don't want to be in that camp. And even like now on the fly, I think you make a really good case about why it's possible and why you could conceive that Patrick Mahomes could at some time. Because you are 100% right. I don't think there's any chance he gets 6 Super Bowls.
Or 9 appearances. It seems impossible.
Insane. And it was the perfect culmination when it all came together with Brady tied with Belichick, the mindset, which is a very rare, just intense focus. You have to make a lot of sacrifices to have as much success as the Patriots do. I don't know if Patrick Mahomes wants to have that approach where he's going to give up a lot of off seasons, give up some money financially, or if Andy Reid wants to do that at this point in his career. So from that standpoint, I don't think it'll ever be matched. There are, much like you've made the case for LeBron greatest of all time, and yet there are some people that will simply refuse to say, you know what, unless he has 6 rings, he's not greater than MJ. And I think there will always be a camp that falls in that line. But just the same way where I do buy into your argument, Michael Jordan changed people's minds because he did things that were so impressive athletically. Like
Jordan was so great when he retired the first time, before 6 rings.
Yes.
When he had 3 rings, that statue outside of the old United Center said the greatest of all time, and no one denied it. Magic had 5. Bird had the same number of rings. Kareem had 6. But it was like, oh, eye test. This guy was just better than all those people. So at some point, the eye test can overcome some of the other things.
And I don't think that's a crazy argument. I don't think that's making some hyperbolic statement just to come out in strong support of Patrick Mahomes, because we've already seen clearly he's playing the game differently than anybody we've seen before in the history of the game, including Tom Brady. And Tom Brady, and this is where I think Tom Brady will struggle ever to become, even if he got a 7th championship, if he would become the greatest, athlete in the history of sports, because what he does athletically isn't super impressive, right? We've seen other quarterbacks come, and even in his prime, it's not like he's running away and making crazy throws off balance. Now, it shouldn't take away from his accomplishments, but it's just a different type of conversation. Whereas Mahomes, like, if he gets half of those, I think 3 rings, and you start racking up multiple MVPs, then I think it's, okay, we can look at this as a game-changing, era-defining type of player, where all of a sudden maybe we start looking at Patrick Mahomes and saying, this kid could be the greatest of all time.
But the other thing that's so impressive about Tom Brady is that he's done it without a boatload of weapons around him. Year in and year out, he may have once, twice along the way, a Randy Moss or something like that. He had Gronk for a while. But what we've seen so far from Patrick Mahomes, while the team isn't paying him a ton of money, is that they're able to pour money into all the weapons around Patrick Mahomes. Can Mahomes do it for a long time? You know, if he is going to take the $200 million, that they're not going to have a ton of money to give to a Tyreek Hill or to a Sammy Watkins or whoever they're going to make as his speed guys, which right now you see Patrick Mahomes, at least in the last 2 years, really relies on that part of the game.
But one of the reasons he has to rely on that part of the game is because he does not have what Brady had for his first 3 Super Bowls, which is Hall of Famers all over on the defense, the greatest maybe defensive coach in addition to the greatest coach ever. So the narrative on Brady that he hasn't had enough help is one, maybe it was true this year, but I think over the tenure of his career, he has been paired with the greatest coach we've ever seen. He had defenses with Richard Seymour and Ty Law and Lawyer Malloy before they got rid of him early on. He then did have Randy Moss, maybe the second best, some would argue, second best receiver of all time, certainly a top 5 receiver of all time. He then had the entirety of arguably the greatest tight ends of all time, his career with him. So the idea that Brady's been starved of opportunity, and I'm not saying that's what you're saying, he obviously, it's been a long time since he's had the embarrassment of offensive riches Patrick Mahomes has had, but it's also been a very long time. In fact, one could argue he's never had a defense as bad as what Patrick had last year, or maybe even this year. Like this year, the Chiefs defense came on strong late, but the first 3 quarters of the season was a bottom 6 defense again. The Patriots defense almost never like that. So it's kind of how you want to win games and the style points that go along with it.
I think there are 2 biggest issues that could crop up with Patrick Mahomes as far as how he wouldn't overcome or what his significant obstacles would be. One is injury. The fact that Brady only missed 1 season in 20 years is pretty that blows my mind in itself. We already had Patrick Mahomes miss some time this season. The other is, and this is one thing that and that's my push back a little bit, is how many different rosters Brady has been able to bring to a Super Bowl. And this will not, the crew here with Tyreek Hill and Kelsey and Mahomes, I don't think that remains intact with the salary cap for a long, long time where you could see that. So if Mahomes can do this with multiple rosters with different weapons that he's working with, then that makes his case a lot stronger.
Which he would have to. And one other component is this. I am curious, now that NFL money for these guys is not that dissimilar to NBA money, I am curious if you don't have more guys saying, man, a hard 10 is good enough.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? That at age 32, I've won a couple, if you've won a couple championships, if you won a couple MVPs, if you've made $300 million. If you don't see NBA guys walk away early, even though the money's so big, because the risk of injury is so minute. And if it's an injury, it's going to be a knee ligament, and it's not something that's probably going to drastically change your life. I do wonder if the Brady Breeze era is also going to be the last era of quarterbacks saying, let me see if I can get 20 years out of this. And that is something that Brady's been able to do at a higher level. He won an MVP in his age 40 season.
Right.
I think any quarterback right now that has recently come into the league is a huge underdog to play their age 40 season, even if they could, just because I don't know if the incentives are aligned. So there's all those elements. Right now, I'd say it's a 2%er. Like,
right.
It's about a 1 in 50 shot. Brady is an overwhelming edge. And by the way, Patrick hasn't even won his first Super Bowl yet.
Right.
He's got to wait at least 12 days for that, maybe longer. And so, but I don't think you can dismiss it. I don't think you can say it's an impossibility.
All right. Well, the quarterback that will be going up against Patrick Mahomes, Jimmy Garoppolo, coming up. Can the 49ers win this Super Bowl if they have to rely on Jimmy G? That's next on FS1. You can always check us out on the Fox Sports channel on Sirius XM. We'll be right back.